Hello, nerds, and welcome. This week, we'll be talking about smooth jazz. No, I'm just kidding. Hello, nerds, and welcome. We are crossing the Nerdverse, bringing you yet another episode. My name is Travis. I'm joined, as always, by my fantastic co-hosts, Eric, Ryan, and Clark. Eric, very excited to be here, even though he's still muted. This week, we're going to be talking about Star Wars media in the form of games, so tabletop RPGs, board games, the ones with the tiny little flying models, maybe some video games, if Eric will let us get a word in edgewise as he talks about Galaxy Quest
Galaxies.
or whatever.
Star Wars Galaxies, greatest MMO ever. But for real,
no, we covered that in the pre-show. Thank you.
Our shit worked. So we're live on YouTube and on Twitch.
Fantastic.
So it worked.
Which
I
that
know
was
you
our delay.
apologize-
That was our delay.
I apologize to everybody that's waiting on us. That was the delay. We were having some technical difficulties getting connected. So glad you're here now, though.
Excited to be here now.
Excited to be here.
Yeah.
But no, Star Wars games. I can't believe we've made it all the way to week 4 of Star Wars month, and we've only kind of briefly covered a lot of the different forms of gaming that is in the Star Wars universe. So I'm actually really excited about tonight. A lot of good stuff to cover.
Yeah, I'm stoked for it. Are we sure we're live on YouTube? I'm trying to find us so I can send the link to my mom. She likes to listen to us talk.
Do not have us on YouTube. We are up on Twitch.
No, we're on YouTube. I'm fixing it. It takes a minute.
Gotcha.
They have the least tech-savvy guy doing this. I just want everybody to know that.
Don't let him lie. He's been doing this for over a year. He has more experience than most
not
IT.
True.
Yeah.
Stand by. Okay, so we're up now, public. It was unlisted before. My fault.
Unlisted? You know what helps us get listed? Subscribers. So everybody that's tuning in, if you wouldn't mind interacting with any of our content, give us a like.
Yeah, go do
Give
that
us a
now.
subscribe. Do that now. It helps us get off this unlisted stuff and lets us play with the algorithm a little more.
Yeah, so, we're good now.
See, that's another one that you've picked up is the Yasso. Just to go
There
back
we
to
go.
our
We
conversation
are
in the pre-show.
rocking and rolling.
My Canadianisms are coming out.
Quite emphatically. It's rather impressive.
Emphatically. I can't spell that word.
Starts
What's
with
its
an E.
origin?
Okay, so I'm going to yank the reins
origin?
because we are running a little bit late tonight, and I do kind of want to hit quota. So instead of going into the hi, how are yous or the normal stuff, let's just get right into it. We've spent the majority of May talking about Star Wars. We talked about the movies. We talked about upcoming stuff in Star Wars. We talked about the actors and the actresses and all of our favorite stuff, and even personal anecdotes with Star Wars or dealing with the Star Wars universe. And because we're a nerd channel, we obviously have to have one dedicated to Star Wars gaming. Now, this is primarily going to be discussing things like video games played on PC and console and that kind of stuff. But I know I have several different unplugged games that I definitely want to talk about. And I think we all have a little bit of different experience when it comes to Star Wars gaming. So, let's start off. Travis, we were talking about this a little bit in the pre-show, but I'm going to start off with you. That way it gives us a ground to work off of. What's your favorite Star Wars game?
Star Wars, of any game?
Yeah,
It's
any game.
KOTOR. Knights of the Old Republic, #1. The
Knights of the Old
first
Republic.
one. The second one was good. I'm not going to knock it, but the first one is by far the best Star Wars game I feel that they have made.
Yeah, I think KOTOR between 1 and 2, I think 2 had a lot better mechanics, right? It was a lot more fluid, a lot more intuitive. But the story was so good in the first one. But you, Eric?
Yeah, the first one was definitely really good. The combat was pretty decent. Like, it wasn't overly complicated, so you could still have some fun with it. The graphics were decent. The audio, like the sound audio, everything was really good. So, like, the first one was great. And if we're talking just consoles, like I don't have an internet connection, yeah, I would absolutely go KOTOR. But Galaxies, like Star Wars Galaxies before the combat patch that came out that everyone kind of had an issue with, myself included. Great game. I love joining Rebels, like having like full-on PC fights. Like I think the biggest one I got into was like 20-something on each side, like just fucking killing each other, coming back, running to the fight, and like just going at it back and forth. It was pretty awesome. So yeah, probably go Galaxies overall, and then KOTOR if it's a console.
Solid. Clark, you got any favorite Star Wars games?
I mean, it might not be a favorite, but the one that I played the most was Jedi Survivor.
A little bit of the newer ones. There's a lot of fans of that one.
I really liked it. It was a different like storytelling, so I enjoyed it. It felt fresh and shiny, and I kind of enjoyed being like overpowered a little bit. I'm always in favor of the OP main character.
If you like OP main characters,
Yep.
you'll definitely like The Force Unleashed, because that dude is. That's. The story boils down to what if Goku was a Jedi, but also an asshole, and then that's how
Yep.
the
I'll
whole
try that
story
one
goes.
next.
Yeah, so Force Unleashed actually was a really fun game. It was all about being overpowered.
Super
And
fun.
so yeah, you played it was like Darth Vader's apprentice. I want to say they called him Star Killer.
Yeah, Star Killer.
And
Yep.
it was using the Force to pull apart moons and hurling star destroyers at people, and it was crazy. There's nothing off limits in that one.
Yeah,
Did you ever-
crumpling TIE fighters into little balls and throwing them at Darth Vader was probably one of the best parts of that game.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear the guy talk
I
about
think
the
I'm gonna need
interview?
to download this immediately.
Oh, for sure.
So the story in Force Unleashed, actually, we're talking about it like it was this hack and slash slaughterer. It really wasn't. It had a very compelling story to it. Not canon even at all. So
Yeah, there's nothing about that that's canon. It's,
nothing
like I said,
about
it's,
it is canon.
It's a whole what if story of Goku becoming a Jedi and also being an asshole to everyone.
Yeah. But the story is really cool. It's about I guess the best way to put it is that you can't trust your own memories when the Force is involved, and it is a great ride. I very much enjoyed it, and it
The
is
combat
primarily
is very much hack and slash, though.
Yeah.
It's very God of War,
yeah, it is very God of War. That's a good comparison.
button mash combo.
Yeah,
You have cool force powers. One of my favorites is yanking people. You can bounce people, and so one of my favorite things to do when I was bored was to pick up a stormtrooper and dribble him across the level.
oh there you go.
You just grab one poor stormtrooper at the very beginning and just go bounce, 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 and then just go through the whole level bouncing this guy while simultaneously conducting lightsaber combat.
So yeah, those are three really solid examples. Now I never played Galaxies a whole lot, so I'm gonna have to defer to Eric on that one. I know Galaxies caught a lot of heat whenever it was big, and they had. You mentioned it just a minute ago, Eric. It was some kind of patch, like a post-combat patch.
Yeah, I can't remember what the patch was called exactly. It was something combat or combat something. Just a lot of controversy because when the game came out, the best part about it was how difficult it was, in the sense of like to become a Jedi, you had to find like one of the holocrons. You had to do tests, like, and if you did manage to get your Jedi, like if you died, it was permadeath. You couldn't keep it because they were so overpowered. So like when you were the Jedi, like initially, like to level up, people like always roamed in packs. So like your whole guild would like protect you while you leveled up, because until you like sustained a decent enough
Just
level,
out there mobbing.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you weren't high enough level, like you could get taken out rather easy, just like a Padawan in a sense, or anything like that. So, but like once you got powers, like you were mowing down like all kinds of people left and right, like maxed out characters by yourself, like you were taking several. But again, permadeath if you died, so you had to start all over. And
I
it was,
hate permadeaths.
but it was cool because it offset the how powerful the Jedi were in the game. Like, so that was like the only game I could think of where, in my opinion, they actually showed how like powerful a Jedi would be compared to people. Because when you think about it, they can deflect blasters and everything else. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of people mowing down fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was taking a lot of people by himself. What's up, Travis?
I'm gonna say, like, even in canon, the Mandalorians have a really good track record for eliminating
They do.
Jedi. They're like notoriously good at it.
But like
I
everybody
think it's a
else
game
had
to them
problems.
at a certain point.
But everybody
Well, it
else
is-
had problems with it, though, is what I mean.
Yeah,
So
it's
like,
an entire warrior society looking at these people that are like, well, these warrior monks, like, you really got to get these guys going before they'll fight. So, but once they fight, it's a real fight. Like,
Well, and that was the whole kick with the Mandalorians. Their most iconic equipment that we see in the movies was all developed to fight Jedis. Like
Yeah.
they have flamethrowers on their wrist because you can't deflect it with a lightsaber.
the
They
whistling
have
birds are
whistling birds.
solid projectiles. Some of them still even use projectile rifles, like slug
Yeah.
throwers, and
Well, you had the grappling
disintegrator
cable.
rifle is also a solid projectile rifle.
Yeah, the grappling cable was meant to emulate the Jedi's telekinesis.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that's like the Mandalorians are the Mandalorians because the Jedi existed, which is weird for me to say because I'm not the biggest Jedi fan, but yeah, it's kind of cool to think about it. And we talked about it in the last episode. For those of you tuning in, go back check it out. It was a great episode. But when you get to see the Jedi in an actual war environment, even when they're limited in number, right? You look at the Clone Wars, one Jedi in an entire platoon of clone soldiers was a force multiplier like crazy. They acted as a mobile defense platform. They acted as an all-terrain, they could pick up the squad and move them around. It was
Did
wild
you just
what you
call
could do
the
with it.
Jedi an all-terrain vehicle?
They are an all-terrain vehicle.
That's a fair
But-
assessment.
I just
Yeah.
think they're like transforming out there, and I'm just like, okay.
There's a crossover. Eric could love Star Wars and Transformers.
Jedi
he would
in
just
a
want
mech
Optimus.
suit.
He just want Optimus Prime to be a Jedi.
No, I was always a Hot Rod guy. That was
Hot
Rodimus
Rod man.
Prime prior to. I didn't like him as Rodimus Prime. Just throwing that out there.
Rodimus Prime. Sounds
He was
like
like a Winnebago. Like, I didn't see how that got cool. He went from being like an awesome sports car to like a Winnebago, and I'm like, it's not really an upgrade. And your name is longer now. Like,
So what was the point of Galaxies? Like, was it just like a big MMO? Was there a storyline? What was the deal with that?
I'm gonna be totally honest in regards to the storyline. Like, I don't remember a lot of the storyline, but you could join Imperial, Rebel, or stay neutral, and then you could actually build a city. And you could have like your own like port, like spaceports and stuff inside of it. I remember right. You could also have like cantina, things like that, so you could have dancers. So like, and they would heal your. If I'm pretty sure that's how you would heal some of your wound damage. Yeah, it's been so long. But the biggest thing that I really liked about it was the PvP was really good. So like they had balanced classes. I felt like in the beginning, it became unbalanced as people complained about it. But in the beginning I think it was balanced the correct way. Like bounty hunters were very tough, and things like that. And yeah, it's just the fighting was really good. Like if you like I was Rebel versus Imperial. Like you could go into a PC built Imperial city and attack them, and destroy some stuff, or they could go into like a Rebel city and things like that. It was solid, man. Like, and then when they added space, it was even better because you got space combat. You could actually be inside your ship and walk around and shit like that. Like, and have like gatherings. Like, it was good.
So what you're telling me is the story is unnecessary and inconsequential, just like WoW.
In that one, I would say yes, only because you're building guilds and things like that. I know you're being funny, but in my opinion, yes, because you're building guilds and you end up competing with other guilds. So like our Rebel Alliance was trying to deal with like Imperial built PC cities and things like that. So
Clark, please express your rage. I can see it building.
I was gonna spend so much money on lore building.
Yeah.
And I can, as a person who like cuts a lot of stuff out of like old school RuneScape, I skip through all of the chat, but like the fact that you didn't know that there was lore in WoW, I think is the egregious part. Not that you didn't pay attention, just that you didn't know.
Not knowing is huge.
Well, I got in. They were like, "We need a tank, real
I-
bad."
I
Here's a
understand
coin that
your
gets you to max
situation.
level, and so I was like, "Cool, this game's just about raids." That's a little weird, but whatever.
But those cutscenes in Raid just
I just thought it was nice. Like, what a nice little cutscene. I have no information about any of this. There was
What?
nothing compelling. Like, there was no introductory quest when I logged in the first time. They were like, "Here's your level 60 character. Have fun." I was like, "Yay!" Bonk. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I
And-
ran around. I shouted. Things chased me.
With the
Ryan,
Galaxy stuff, I
Ryan
can.
sweated a lot trying to keep me healed.
That is a fact. But I can see some appeal into that, where it's an almost like a true sandbox, right? Where you're making your own stories. Here's the framework. It's Star Wars. You these guys are these guys, and go. So I can see some appeal in that.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. Like I honestly, I think especially with your background, like storytelling, you'd really like it. If the server's really going, like I don't know if it's as good now because they still have it out there. Like you could still get on it. A lot of like player made stuff now going still. So you can still get on there and try it if you wanted to. It's a bit of a pain in the ass now, but you can still do it. And it plays well.
I was gonna say I thought it shut down.
It did, but some
No.
players have kept it around. That's why it's
Okay.
kind of a pain now to play it, because Sony doesn't control anything, and I don't know if they'd be upset. They know it's out there. They have to. I mean, it's not like it's a hidden thing. But
Yeah.
You were talking about storytelling. Has anyone besides Ryan and I played any of the like dice rolly tabletop
I played it.
Star Wars stuff?
Did you play it?
I've played Armada once, but that's not like a dice rolly one. That's more
So
of like a board game.
Yeah, Armada is a really interesting game, which I do have a whole thing I want to talk about with like Armada and X-Wing and some of those types of products.
Which tabletop did you play, Eric? I'm curious.
So I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I played it in like 2000. So whatever role-playing Star Wars game was out in 2000 ish,
So
that's
we
what
actually
I would have played.
we did the same thing, Travis, because those were the ones where it was the shorter books for whatever reason. Like they didn't match the D&D books, but a lot of the mechanics were same. It seemed like they based it a lot on the 3rd edition or 3.5
I would
edition.
say I had
of
full-size
D&D.
books.
They have
See, the books-
Star Wars 5e, which is basically D&D 5e.
Right.
So
I don't
that might
remember
have
it
been what
being
he
an
played.
edition with the Star
Oh.
Wars I played though. Like I just remember it having like there was the books, they were full size like D&D. I just don't remember like what edition or anything it would have been.
Maybe was it
But it came out in like 2000 ish.
Edge of the Empire? Maybe.
Well, D6 came out and like they got an update in 1996.
Well, I guess Edge of the Empire had its own dice system, and it didn't do like the D20 and stuff. It was like a series of D6s.
Saga edition in 2007. I'm having an aneurysm. Don't mind me.
That's fine.
It's
We'll
alright.
send somebody to come get you.
On no CPR. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It's not even CPR. It's just him bouncing on your chest going, stand
It
up,
is.
I'm hungry, stand up, stand up, I'm hungry.
Licky
Well,
licky.
The good news is, Travis, since I'm a hoarder and never throw anything away,
Oh, good.
The one that
you
we-
still have my character sheet?
I actually do. They were in the books, like, believe it or not. So, this is the first one we played. This is Star Wars: The Saga Edition.
Yeah, it's the one Clark was just talking about.
Yeah.
I'm so
and-
good at this game.
So this one was very much based off of, in my opinion, 3rd edition D&D, and it was a lot of fun. But it was very much D&D game. It's your spellcasting classes were your force sensitives, and you had a whole bunch of other stuff going to it. It was fun. It was fine. I have not tried anything with the 5th edition stuff you were talking about, Clark, but I will tell you guys, when it comes to the tabletop aspects, I seriously think that the 3 different lines they came out with, and help me out, Travis, it was Edge of the Empire, Age of
Edge of the
Rebellion,
Empire, Age of Rebellion, and
and Force and Destiny?
Force and Destiny. That is correct.
So that was a super cool take on how to do a tabletop RPG, because they made
Yeah,
it much
but
more narrative.
Any of the ones that had Jedi in them was just wildly broken. Like, there was no reason
Yeah.
for anyone not to be a Jedi in any of those, because they're just so far beyond any other character class you can make.
So Kit Crash Twitch says it was just called Star Wars role playing game in 2000. There was one that came out.
Star Wars.
Okay.
I do remember it was a D20 system. And that probably was it, if that's what came out. I couldn't find anything in particular, but
Yeah, I was playing Star Wars role playing in the mid 2000s, but that didn't involve books or dice. That was
It's just
something
you
else
in the
entirely.
backyard with the lights.
The toys were really
Um,
cool, okay?
James says, "What's up, nerds?" on
Yeah,
YouTube.
all right. Shout out to Kit
Hi,
Crash
James.
and to Bones on YouTube. Glad you guys are here. So yeah, when it comes to the tabletop
Give or take
role-playing
on
games,
Bones, it's whatever.
yeah, give or take.
I do think Star Wars, though, is probably the hardest TTRPG that is out there for storytelling compared to, like, we've talked about a lot on here, all the Shadowruns, the D&D, the Pathfinders, the fucking vampires, all those other things. Like, I think Star Wars, only because if you're a true storyteller, you will let your players kind of do what they want, which means once they get a ship, they can fuck off to anywhere, and you might not know what you're doing anymore.
So what's
Star
also
Wars has
interesting
the
about that-
potential
The
to...
mechanics in that game can get out of hand real fast, because I know
Yeah.
Bones made a crafter that could just make whatever it, like, first or second. Well, that wasn't first level. I guess it was like second or third. I created a sniper that could just smoke people from miles
mile
away.
away.
See far, far away.
Yeah, pretty much. Like they could leave me in orbit, and I'm just gonna be picking noses from the stratosphere.
Well, and the good news is, to Eric's point, so generally whenever I ran the Star Wars stuff, I ran it in one of two different ways. First way was, again, very much like a standard Star Wars narrative. You are building characters, you know what the basic story arc is going in. It's like, okay, everybody build whatever, soldiers or Jedi or whatever we're doing, because we're going to be doing this kind of story. And so that's a much more, I don't want to call it linear, but it kind of is linear. You play through an RPG that feels very much like playing through a movie trilogy, right? And the ones that we did that were key on that one, the one that I remember the most in any case, is I had everybody build as a clone trooper, and they were a squad of clone troopers that did stuff during the war. And so I didn't have to worry about them, like Eric put it, just running off to do whatever they wanted to in BFE. They always got their missions, they had their stuff, they had their training exercises and that kind of jazz. The ones that were a little bit harder is when I run open world, and I do that one in Edge of the Empire a lot. And so for those of you that don't know, the 3 arcs are Edge of the Empire, and that's where you're running like criminals, kind of. You live on the edge of society kind of people.
I thought that was a Scum and Villainy expansion for one of them.
There was, that added a whole bunch of like bounty hunters, criminal cartel stuff. Age of Rebellion is where you're playing soldiers in the war, and this is either for, I guess it's your pretty standard like Imperial versus the Rebels kind of stuff. You could also do it for Separatists versus the Galactic Republic, and a whole bunch of stuff. And then Force and Destiny is where you're playing Jedi. What you got, Clark?
I was just wondering, so like for me, Star Wars, there's like a lot of little pieces of canon that kind of make the universe work. And if somebody doesn't have that piece of canon in there, I feel like the danger with a Star Wars RPG is you could really break physics of that world, probably more so than a general like D&D campaign. Is that the case?
So a little bit, but it's kind of in a good way. From my experience, the way my players ran it, it was a lot of fun because everybody got to build anything they really wanted. And like I've told you before, my table was very much like a role-oriented group. Like, okay, we need a tank, we need a healer, we need a couple of DPS, we need a face. And in Star Wars, we got to vary that up a little bit more. And I do laugh because inevitably I always had at least one player at my table. One of them was Travis's beautiful wife, who played a robot or a droid. Even though they
a
are wildly
force-sensitive
complicated,
robot and droid.
right? Now I guess we could talk about the problems with it first. So the way that game runs, the mechanics behind that game, use a narrative dice system. And so you have a handful of dice that you're going to roll that are all different shapes and colors, depending on what you're doing. And so the better you are at something, the better colors of dice you get to add to your hand. The harder the task you're trying to accomplish, the more bad colors of dice you add to your hand. And that's what you do, is you have a whole grip of blue and black and green and red and all these different dice that all have good sides and bad sides. And you roll them all. And so you have dice scatter, and you count up all of the good symbols and all of the bad symbols, and they cancel each other out. And if you end up with more bad symbols, something bad happens. If you end up with more something good, more good symbols, something good happens. And
then you also have the force, whatever not the force die, I guess is not what it calls, but like one of the symbols on there isn't a success, but it adds like different tiers of effects,
like advantages, and there was a force system that I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, so you match up all your symbols, and the cool thing about it, in my opinion, is that when it was good, the players actually got an opportunity, even when it was bad, actually, the players had an opportunity to narrate part of what happened. Like, the players got to choose, okay, why did it get to this degree of severity on bad stuff, or this degree of severity on good stuff?
So kind of like the one we're playing, which my character sheet is somewhere, and now I can't remember, where we go into the hole.
Yeah, the Substratum Protocol
Yep,
was very
thank
similar.
You. Okay.
And so the other mechanic behind that is that you had these chips. And the chips, you had a good side and a dark side, right? Like, you had the light side and the dark side of the Force. And there would be so many on the table for the party's use, and then so many on the table for the DM's use. And whenever you used one, it flipped to the other side. So if the party used a chip, I would get a chip. If I used a chip, the party would get a chip. And it gave this kind of flow to the story that I think was really cool. Now, it could be abused if you didn't pay attention to the way that it was intended to be used, because it's a very narrative game, right? It's not the type of game like D&D where it's like, yeah, because I multi-classed 3 times, I can do 300 damage with a smite attack at level 3. It's not the way that Star Wars works, but it could be really easily.
Yeah, or inadvertently. I mean, it's kind of the same
Yeah.
thing as like we ran into a Scion where like, so our play group is very crunchy. Like we're very numbers based. A
We're
lot
better
of us
now,
are also
but
very synergistic because we're like,
yeah.
well, these two things are complementary. I can use them to work in concert with one another to create even more success. And so we still do to an extent hyper specialize on our character creation.
Yeah, we're better
And-
now, but it's definitely still a thing.
For sure. What's up, Eric?
Okay, so since we all love Star Wars, sorry, Clark, this one I know everyone wants to hear you give your take on things, but unfortunately, you probably don't got anything on this because you didn't play Star Wars. What?
I
She
didn't
plays all
play,
kinds of Star Wars.
I didn't
No,
play
I
any
mean,
of
like,
the all kinds.
the TTRPG versions.
I think Eric just told me to shut up and sit down.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God. See, look,
Trust
now
me,
you're
if
gonna
we're
get
gonna
me
tell
hated
anybody to shut
online
up, sit
now.
down.
Yeah, I really feel like the only one on like live that we've ever told just straight up to shut up was been Eric. So
Yeah.
What you
that
got,
brought
Eric?
me
Anyways,
joy.
no, on a very for real. What is something you fixed in Star Wars when you ran a game? Because I don't have any input on this either. I never got to run a game of Star Wars, and I only played in one once. So I
one of
unfortunately
the
never got to do anything cool with the Star Wars universe to fix something or make something I always wanted to see happen.
So there was a couple things that I did when I ran my Star Wars universe, and I would say, firstly, and I'm just going to throw it out there, it's going to be a hot take. A lot of fans are going to be mad at me about it, but I did not use the Mortis gods. I did not use really anything in that realm of sentient force. And ultimately, the force in my campaign was very, very benign, right? Like, very rarely did you get pushed into a situation where you were destined to be there. Now, there were exceptions to this, particularly in the Jedi campaign. But especially when I'm running with soldiers or running like a criminals game, the Force did not play a large part in the storyline. Additionally, and this was a fix I actually did specifically for Travis. So snipers in any RPG, are extremely effective, but so very boring.
yeah.
And especially if you're getting good with it, and you'll see this in D&D 5th edition all the time. People get so excited because they'll play a warlock sorcerer and be able to get an eldritch blast out to 1,200 feet or out to 2,800 feet or whatever.
Yeah.
And in D&D, this is capstoned because a lot of your adventuring in D&D does not have lines of sight like that.
Now
And
fall
so you are
underground.
you're going to go underground. You're going to go into dungeons. You're going to raid a castle. You're going to be in an urban environment. And while there are moments where, you're playing a flying PC and you're going to be up in the air with your, half a mile Eldritch Blast, and there's nothing DM can really do without making it obvious that they're just trying to counter you, to add any kind of challenge to your character. Now, in other settings, especially with Star Wars, D20 Modern, or anything like that, having a sniper or a marksman is a classic identity trope, right? And so you start talking about like all the major military or paramilitary teams that in fiction. There's always a marksman, there's always a sniper, there's always somebody like that. And doing that in a tabletop RPG and making sure that the player is not getting bored is a challenge. Travis, what do you got?
Chat.
You're also
Sir, we had a guy in the chat that desperately wants you to talk about the good and evil bacteria.
Oh, we talking metachlorians?
Okay,
yeah,
so
he was asking specifically if there was a mechanical balance for metachlorians in any of the RPGs. So like that's an actual like rule related question, but I had to bring up the good and bad bacteria.
Yeah. So
See, that's
who's
the
asking
exact
here? Let me
thing
bring up
that
the
I was like,
chats.
oh, I bet you I
Juan-
could manipulate that and have a
Juan
really stupid
Rodero.
character.
Yeah.
All right, Juan. So, firstly, the unfortunate truth is that metachlorians are discussed in precisely 2 different forms of Star Wars media. One of them being Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, where they are brought up out of nowhere. And secondly, in the Bad Batch television show Season 3. They have no real ground anywhere else in the universe. I've never used metachlorians in any of my games. No, there's not a mechanic to represent metachlorians unless you were going to draw an abstract to a, what is it called, Travis? Force sensitivity level?
Yeah, I mean, it would just be like a balance into force sensitivity.
Yeah, and so in the games, there is a numeric kind of quantifier on how much force you can actually use at any given time.
Which
And
I
this does
think
two
is
different
set
things.
based on like level.
Yeah.
Like it's a
Well,
tiered thing.
It does two different things. It describes how potent your force abilities are and how frequently you can use them. And so the higher your sensitivity rating, the more you can do and the stronger it is.
Yeah,
and we
the
joked
higher your
about Force
bacterial
Unleashed.
infection.
Yeah, the higher your infection. We talked about Force Unleashed earlier. That's the difference between Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, lifting a pear and floating it across the table, and Starkiller, who literally reached up into orbit, grabbed a Star Destroyer, and hit his enemy with it. And so, yes, I guess in that regard, metachlorians are mechanically represented. I did not discuss metachlorians in my game. I have a personal vendetta and pet peeve against them.
Because some of the bacteria is good and some of it's bad.
Juan
By their own
also-
explanation in the movies. There's
He was
evil
not a
bacteria.
fan of it. He was not a fan of it in the prequels. He states in the chat too, just so you
Oh,
know.
It is
good.
ridiculous.
He was just
I'm on your
curious.
own side with it. It's
Yeah.
so wild.
So that was actually a big thing that I did in my games. Now, we only ever ran one Jedi game, and I'm going to be clear about
And it
that.
was
But
so broken.
it was so broke. But also, bear in mind that the way that I ran the Force was not very much like there's a light side and a dark side to the Force, so to speak. The Force I portrayed more as a neutral entity. It was a tool. And when you used it in a certain way, it corrupted you. And when you didn't use it in a certain way, much more like, the light side or the Jedi kind of take on things, the way that I described it is that the Force is just the Force, and how you use it is how dangerous it is to you as a person. So the Jedi who have meditative techniques and use very limited amounts, they don't burn out their body on it. Whereas the Sith, who are trying to draw as much as possible and use it to do these really raw or uncontained things, there's backlash from that. And I described it very much like using fire. And so if you are using a lighter or using a match to start a campfire, all right, go to town. You start a little bit of fire and you can grow larger. You can also start a campfire with a flamethrower, but there might be backlash.
I don't know how you start a campfire.
Yeah.
It's how I start all my fires and ours.
He probably uses hairspray and a lighter. I feel like that's
Yeah, upside down. That's how I light my grill.
Fair enough.
Oh, I'm trying it.
What you got, Clark?
So I guess this harkens back to my original question. That's not like a game set rule of like, this is the canon in the world. So I can decide to use good and bad bacteria if I want. I can
Absolutely.
say, hey, it's like a strength modifier. You can have 5 points to metachlorines or not. Like, I can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were certain proficiencies you could get in light and dark side stuff that unlocked different powers. And that's kind of a throwback or a harken back to the Saga edition that I showed you earlier. Yeah, and to KOTOR. Additionally, and I want to make this really clear as we go forward while we're talking about Force stuff, anybody that has been in the world for very long, there was a huge thing way back in the day about how prosthetics and cybernetics interfered with your ability to use the Force.
What?
Yeah, this was a huge thing.
I don't
And
remember.
there was a
That's
whole bunch of
because your
conversation.
blood doesn't flow through that
Well,
piece.
that is where we flow down to metachlorians. Never mind the fact that Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader, I guess I should say, was mostly robot, and that all of our all of our most powerful Force users had at least some kind of cybernetic, because being a good Jedi for the Skywalker family meant losing a hand.
That's true. Luke is still most of a Jedi, though.
Yeah, he's still most of a Jedi. So I actually did some diving on that in preparation for tonight. And what's funny is that came out because of the RPG right before this one. That was a rule they put into an RPG that bled its way into Wikipedia and into the kind of fandom at large, and why everybody was so upset about it. That was never canon. So, but yeah, as far as that goes, you could get dark side and light side levels very similar to Knights of the Old Republic that could unlock different uses for powers.
And how easy it was for you to manifest them, because you could be like the paragon of good, but still technically in like the RPGs get dark side powers, but they were very hard to use.
Indeed.
Like they were a massive drain on your like resources or spell
Well, that's-
slots, I guess is the equivalent.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, like in the I know in the books for sure, like even light side people could get like dark side powers. Like Luke,
Oh, for sure.
on several different occasions in the books used Force Lightning.
Oh yeah.
Luke choked people to death.
Can't remember that particular, but I definitely remember the lightning.
What do you
I
mean
know,
you don't
and I
remember?
know
He
killed.
killed 2 Gamorreans walking in to talk to Jabba.
Yeah, that's like in the films.
Yeah, like you
With force
literally watch
choke?
him choke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
force chokes 2
chokes.
Gamorreans.
Yeah, as he's
Did we
walking in to
confirm
talk to
to
Jabba.
death or just like to pass out?
Pass it. I mean,
Yeah, he
Did we
just knocked
confirm to death
just
or
a little
just
bit
to
of brain
completion?
damage.
Yeah, just a little.
This is Batman all
Nobody
over
ever
again.
dies
It's like,
in
oh,
Star
he didn't
Wars.
kill him.
A
He just
little-
gave him serious brain damage.
Yeah.
Just,
I mean,
Better.
technically the Wayne
just
family
a little
was
David
doctors.
Carradine on the way through the door.
He pulled a Batman. He didn't kill them. He just crippled them for life.
I fight people and they get very sleepy.
Yeah.
Oh man, I feel like I just dropped gold and nobody reacted
It's
to
fine.
my
But yeah,
David
so as
Carradine.
far as that goes,
We'll
that's
clip it.
that's a change. That's a major change that I made to my Star Wars world. Is that the light side and the dark side of the Force are only portrayed that way by major religious organizations like the Jedi and the Sith, who kind of put a propaganda spin on it, and the Force was just the Force. And how much you used and how much you tried to pull on at one time could damage your body, and that led to Force corruption. Now, the good news is the use of Force, if you're not in the Force and Destiny avenue of the games, is very simple. It's easy to run with, and the game is amazing. The downside is when you start adding in Force-sensitive characters beyond what, and I forget what they were called in that game, Travis, but the Prestige class type of character career
Acolyte?
paths. There was Force-sensitive Exile and a few of them. You could get
Apprentice.
effectively a Prestige class
Yeah.
that got some Force powers, and that was cool, but it wasn't overpowered. That was actually, you couldn't get that till like mid to late game, and it was very minimal.
Yeah, and they were pretty. Yeah, they were honestly, like, as far as mechanics go, they're pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
Like they were aggressively medium.
Yeah, I think they were outclassed by a lot of other advanced careers. Now that does
All
not,
of the trooper advanced careers were
yeah,
bonkers.
really good. That doesn't go into the Force and Destiny RPG. I tried one time to tell everybody all books are open. We're doing a full world everything. If you want to make a soldier, make a soldier. If you want to make a Jedi, make a Jedi. When you start mixing them like that, they don't balance well. And it very much became a Shadowrun-esque game. We joked about it a couple episodes ago, where it's like, okay, I'm going to run some Shadowrun. Travis is going to go ahead and build a Street Samurai. Clark builds some kind of drone controller techie chick, and Eric makes a spirit shaman. And suddenly I'm having to run 3 different games simultaneously because it's 3 different worlds all happening at the same time. That's kind of what happens when you start mixing all of the different stuff together. Now, bits and pieces from the game interchanged really well, in my opinion. And even if I was going to start up one today, I would still tell everybody you can use whatever species you want from any of the books. They're all open. I generally have all of the equipment is all going to be available. It's all plug in, no big deal. And that kind of stuff. But the base classes and the base advanced careers are more like, hey, stick to that. If we're going to be Edge of Empire, play Edge of the Empire kind of
Some
thing.
of the equipment tiers, like the rarity tiers in the RPGs, are very broken.
Yeah, and very inconsistent, I would say.
Yeah,
the
like,
equipment is definitely something that got didn't get a second glance.
Yeah,
while they were
stun
creating the
grenade
game.
is like a rank 2, but then like a frag grenade's a rank 1, and I'm like, why is the stun grenade, the non-lethal option, harder to get than like a frag grenade?
Because it's non-lethal.
Ion grenades were like rank 5.
Yeah, well, and like you said earlier, if you build a craftsman, somebody who all your picks are like, this makes me better at crafting, can really get out of hand really quickly. Especially because you
'cause
end
you
up
don't have
rolling
to wait
30
for
or
tier
40
ranks.
dice.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna build a spaceship out of this toothpaste. Like,
It wasn't toothpaste, okay? We had the ship beforehand. He just juiced it, and like we were
well, and what's truth be told,
running a hot rod. We were a
if
bad roll away though from like death in that thing pretty
Oh, yeah.
consistently because none of us we souped it up and none of us had the skill to fly it. I think I was our pilot and I had like maybe 3 dice. Like,
and I'll be honest, the building the ships and the vehicles and that kind of stuff, that didn't bother me at all. The only times it ever got out of hand was energy-based rifles
yeah.
and cybernetics, because that got out of hand pretty quick.
It was
But-
tough to play that. It was tough to play that sniper. I really had to get into like the RP mindset
Yeah,
because there was a lot
Well-
of times where I just sat for scenes.
And I
But
tried
that's what you
to-
do as a sniper.
Well, and that's what I was bringing up a minute ago is, I have you as a sniper in my game. I definitely start changing up my storytelling to make sure that you being in position is a vital element, right? And so what I did is you change the perspective. And you make sure that Travis's sniper is constantly in communication, which in Star Wars it's as easy as I have a comlink.
Yeah.
In a position
I wear
where
a
he's
helmet.
feeding intelligence. Yeah. And so that way it's the sniper's job not just to do big damage with a single bullet. He's reading the battlefield. He's telling you, these people are coming this way. These people are coming this way. He's keeping an eye on any kind of perimeter or anything like that.
Covering
so
the
you
escape route.
Yeah. And in fact, that's exactly what I did in one particular one. He was on top of a building on some backwoods planet, and his whole job wasn't necessarily to even be DPS. His job was to make sure there was an avenue of escape for them to get out of. And more than once, Travis's character would make sure that the party didn't get surrounded, that they had a way out. And that's a fun
I
way
was
to use a
got
sniper.
left behind on a planet because I couldn't get back to the ship, so they had to come back and get me later. I
Come
just had
back
to
and get
fucking
you.
hang out.
Yep. And so it's playing a sniper in these games it's a safe play, but it's complicated, and you have to be okay with not being the main character.
Yeah.
So all you bard mains out there, don't play a sniper.
No.
So very narrative game. I like it. It brings the players into the storytelling just as much as the DM, and you can literally do any kind of story you want to. In fact, I ran a whole story of Deathwatch one time just for the funsies of it. But yeah, what you got, Travis?
Just saw it brought up in the chat was the flying game. Was that the X-Wing? Was that the one that had the tiny little models?
Indeed, I actually still
It's
play
like
that
the
one.
little- I really enjoyed that one. I got my ass kicked consistently just because movement in that game. Yeah, movement in that game beat me up with the little tiles.
There's been a lot of really good flying games. Some of the older ones I think are the best because they were more like the simulators. So when you get into some of the older ones, they definitely, like the joysticks and stuff you could use with your PC, made it a lot more interesting.
Oh,
like,
you're talking about the video games, yeah.
I like the storyline to some of the newer flying games, like the Rogue Squadron storyline's really cool to throw into it, but like the controls and stuff, I don't feel like I'm a pilot. The old school, like Rogue Squadron, like he's mentioning X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, the Balance of Power expansion. I don't remember the expansion in general, but I do remember that series, and it was fucking phenomenal. The controls and things like that.
X-Wing
really
versus
was
TIE
cool.
Fighter. That was an older one, actually. That was
Bone said 97.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
My favorite Star Wars flying game is the arcade that has the
the full version
and the
arcade.
joystick. Yeah, and it's got the big wraparound screen. You basically sit in a little pod. That's probably my favorite, even though it's like $1 to play.
Yeah.
But every time
probably
we come across one of those,
anymore.
my brother-in-law and I, if we ever come across one at an arcade, we always go for high score because he gets the high score by being actually really, really good at flying games, like insanely good. So he's shooting stuff down. I always go for the speed bonus, so I'm always just like full throttle, just juking around everybody to get to the end of the level, and I'm like, I'll catch up with my time bonus.
Yeah. Well, and actually, to your point, Eric, I agree with you because I think Rogue Squadron was an excellent game. One of my my favorite, I guess I never threw that in at the beginning of the episode. My favorite Star Wars video game of all time is still Battlefront, the original Battlefront.
2004.
Yeah, 04. That one I think was a masterpiece. I actually just tried to play it again here recently, and it does not look great anymore. But for the time, it was amazing.
Hello, Jenkins.
Indeed. But I have to say an easy number 2 is more, and it's personal anecdote time, right? Like it's definitely maybe just me, but the Star Wars Pod Racer for the N64.
I liked that one.
That one was one of my absolute favorites. You could get 4 people in playing. It was a basic kind of Mario Kart, but all Star Wars, and you had 50 different pods you could fly, and it was so good. I
Did
absolutely loved
anyone
Pod Racer.
else? Well, did anyone besides me ever just turn their pod around, going the wrong direction, and then ram into your friends as they were racing? Or am
No,
I the only
I
one that
wasn't
did
a
that?
dick.
That was my favorite thing to do. I'm like, fuck it, I'm a lap down.
Are
Taking
you the
out
guy who
Ryan.
goes backwards in Mario Kart to like get the
No.
little boost? Okay.
No,
He's
I
not in
turn
it to
I
win.
turn into the worst human being on the planet in Mario Kart. You know all the jokes we talk about Eric being toxic? Mario Kart taps into the most evil side of my brain, to the point where it's safer for me just to not play Mario Kart.
That's fair.
Because I go out of my way, like, and I got it from my dad playing with me when I was a little kid.
Oh,
My dad's
okay.
merciless, right? He's the exact same way my grandma was. If you're old enough to play, you're old enough to get crushed.
Yes.
But he didn't have the good graces to just win. My dad would shit talk you on the way to the victory line. He was just
Like
like,
a
man,
good father.
you saved your nickels and dimes for 2 years to buy this Nintendo, and like you can't even win this simple race game against your dad. That must be awful. We should go again so you get better. And then he would just crush me again. He wasn't that bad, but he did shit talk like across the finish line. And so
So I do want to
Mario
get
Kart brings out
greens
the evil in me.
while we're coming up here. So I do want to spend some time talking about the Star Wars miniatures games. Now, y'all have heard us talk
Trash.
a lot. Yeah. Hold your horses here.
Tell me more.
You've heard us talk about Warhammer and stuff a lot, right? A lot of us play miniatures war games and miniatures tabletop games, and they're a lot of fun. And the Star Wars versions, in my opinion, are some of the best miniatures war games that they've made to come out. They are a lot of fun. They're very, very unique to play, and it comes in 3 different tiers. And so you have Armada, and in Armada, you're holding whole fleets, right? You have Star Destroyers and big, big ships, and you're moving through vast amounts of space. And then you have my personal favorite, X-Wing, which is a fighter simulator. You have so many points, you build up a little fighter squadron of your ships, and you duke it out with your friends. And terrain's a whole thing, and it's a lot of fun. It uses very special dice and specialty movement. And then on the ground, you have Imperial Assault. And Imperial Assault is a tactical miniatures game with role-playing elements. And so we've played it a couple times. One of them was at Pi Day. I liked it. I thought it was cool. It's
Ryan,
not.
you like every game though. Like
It's not the
you're
most
so
balanced game ever.
optimistic.
Do you actually
when you
have a
come to
game
it,
that
like,
you
you're
don't
so
like?
optimistic. No,
There are
Ryan
a couple
likes them all.
games that I don't like.
Any game that he can play with friends, Ryan's a big fan
Yeah.
of.
So I'm very much an unplugged gamer. If there's a board game, if there's ways to go about it, I will absolutely be there. I'm a huge fan of everything from Uno all the way up to, playing Relic or playing Talisman. I have one board game right now that I still have yet. I've owned it for over a decade and I haven't got a chance to use it yet. And it's called Risk Legacy, which I'll tell you. I think I've talked about it on the show before. But
No, Ryan, I'm not playing Risk with you again. The last time we played Risk, it took 6 days.
yeah, the longer a game takes, the better, in my opinion. I'm absolutely that kind of stereotype gamer that I want to take a week off in the summers to just go play, World War II African Front and call it a day.
The stupid Star Wars, whatever the one was called, where you're on the ground, is by far like the most unbalanced game. Like as far as miniatures go, it was so bad. It was so broken to one side.
Well, and it depends on how you play it, because there's 2 different ways to play Imperial Assault. One of them is an RPG, and that's where you have a character and your stats and your miniature, and you're making your way through a map generated by a storyteller who's placing so many pieces out to try to stop you and your team. And in that regard, it is wildly unbalanced. You could also play Versus, and so this is where it functions a lot more like Battlefront, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm going to bring 50 points, so I get 3 clone troopers, and I have just enough to bring whatever, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And the opposing side will take different approaches to that kind of same thing. However, it does have the same problem that many of these games, where it's got power creep that's very noticeable. And so for a little bit, the new stuff that came out was just what you wanted because that would just win.
100%. The balancing act in that game was
Yeah.
atrocious. Also,
Wasn't
again,
the
one of those
best.
things where it's wildly unbalanced in regards to like Jedi, specifically Jedi versus Sith in that game
Yeah.
was so broken because the Jedi were so overpowered compared to the Sith instead of it being a neck and neck thing like it should have been because they're the same.
Yeah.
I
Now,
have
Barrett,
an odd opinion on the Jedi Sith things. I think Sith are stronger in the beginning, and Jedi are stronger long term. Because with darkness and stuff like that, like they get the power rather quick, but they don't really like learn to totally control it as much.
And I get that
And then
from
with
like
the
the
light
point of like a
side, you get it.
headcanon or lore, but when I'm having to fight my number against another number,
so
it should be neck and neck.
the interesting thing to your point, Eric, is that dynamic actually plays out in several of the RPGs, right? The Saga edition that we brought up before, when you were playing a Force sensitive, you had a power connection scale. And it very much is exactly what you're saying. If you went dark side, you got lots of bonuses very, very early, but they didn't really get bigger. You only got a few. Whereas if you were playing light side, you've got a very small bonus in the beginning and ended up with the best bonus in the game at the end, but you had to work your way up the curve. Whereas going dark side, you got a decent bonus very quickly.
Yep.
And you can see that.
The thing.
But we used to joke about it when we would just have our sit and talks about Star Wars, because I got very frustrated. This was years ago, about how when you have any kind of Sith Lord in any of the works, right? Whether you're talking Old Republic, High Republic, current stuff, I hated how every time there was a Sith Lord, you'd have one dude and you would send 5 or 6 or 20 Jedi to go and deal with it. And it's like, well, obviously the Sith are more powerful. They're obviously stronger because you need 20 flipping Jedi to deal with them. And you saw that a lot in games. And we talked about Force Unleashed. That's not really a good example. But
It's not a good example for
not a great example
for power balancing.
But KOTOR is the same way. You know, you start talking about what was the pain guy? Darth Nihil?
Darth Nihilus.
Nihilus. Is the one with all the cracks in him.
I'm pretty sure that's what his name was.
Yeah, because one of
That's
them
the
was
guy
the dude.
who's held together by the Force.
Yeah. And there was another one that he wore a mask and they called him the Planet Eater because he would absorb the Force and life force from planets. Anyway.
As one does.
Dealing with that, you're very much hitting the deal where it's like you better have a couple platoons of soldiers and half a dozen Jedi or you're screwed. I guess, or be Darth Revan, but plot armor exists.
Yeah, I mean, the thing when they took out Darth Revan, or captured him, I should say, that was a strike team of 5.
Yeah. And so for me, for a long time, it was always like, well, the Sith are stronger because they can just take on, even when you look at the movies, right? Darth Maul fought Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi to a standstill and only lost because he couldn't stop playing with his food.
Okay, but one thing.
No, he lost because Obi-Wan had the low ground. He always told people that I have the high ground, which was this huge misleading thing. Obi-Wan was always better when he was slightly lower than his opponent.
You got to remember too, when you're a good guy and you're fighting somebody, you're not fighting generally to kill them. So you're holding yourself back while you fight. And then the bad guys
makes them terrible.
Are definitely just attacking you to kill you. So
I think the Jedi would be happy to kill a Sith Lord. I feel like they're not like, he's going to prison.
They wanted to capture him initially because they wanted to find out there's always 2.
Yeah.
So they wanted to find out more information about what was going on, which is why, because if they wanted to kill him, I really feel like Qui-Gon could have done that much earlier.
And that holds, actually. You start looking at the Mace Windu when he brought down Palpatine. Mace Windu had Palpatine dead to rights. And then Anakin busts in and is like, we need to capture him. Like, killing's not the Jedi way. And Mace Windu's like, yeah, no, he's too dangerous to be left alive.
That's sort of just like, at a certain point, they've never successfully captured one, so you kind of gotta.
Sometimes you need the sniper, right?
Stun.
Kit Crash said that Darth Sion was the one about pain.
Yes, Scion. That's what I needed. Thank you very much. Is it Kit Crash, you said?
Kit Crash.
Kit Crash on our Twitch channel. Fantastic. Great call out. Well done.
Yeah, dude, Bones. Mace Windu definitely a different breed as far as Jedi goes. I love that they were just like, it'd be cool if Samuel L. Jackson was a Jedi, and they were like, should we make him a badass? And he was like, well, it's Samuel L. Jackson. Obviously, we're gonna make him a badass.
And purple lightsaber, like they initially told him he had
color.
green or blue.
See,
Yeah.
I
Who's gonna
actually-
tell him no?
That's
Well,
true.
and I
Not
love
me.
that because I like having lightsabers of wildly different colors. So we discussed MMOs earlier. Let's go ahead and talk about Star Wars: The Old Republic, the
a minute.
PC MMO.
One thing about Samuel L. Jackson being a Jedi that I was very upset about, at no time did he say motherfucker.
Yeah.
Was
It's a
very
kid's show,
disappointed in
man.
that the entire time through. I felt like at some point he absolutely should have used that reference with...
When would you have had him use it?
At some
Okay.
point when he was
grant
talking
you
to
the rank of
Anakin.
master, motherfucker.
That's what I was.
Yeah, when he's talking to Anakin, at several
So,
points he should have
is
used
that where you
that.
would
It's the
plug in?
only place you can. Like that's
That's
the
where you
best
plug in your
place to
F-bomb?
put it. Yeah.
And they
That
do
is
get
100%
one.
the correct answer.
They get
You only
one
get
for
one
their
F-bomb.
rating.
Where would
yeah,
you put it?
One
that's where it
F-bomb.
would probably be where it is when he's telling him he can't be.
See, there's
He's not
part of
gonna
me
be a
that wants
master.
to plug it in right after he takes off Jango Fett's head in episode 2, and just have him look and be like, motherfucker, and walk away.
This motherfucker.
This motherfucker.
When does Anakin slice Mace Windu?
He chops off his arms.
Yeah, chops off both his hands, and then he falls out a window.
Yeah. He doesn't fall out. He gets long.
Man, I
you
gotta
just
like
see the
rewatch
lasso out
some
the window,
movies.
yeah. You got Kamehameha into the fucking drop
Oh.
zone.
But yeah, that's
Darth
actually
Nihilus
interesting.
wore the mask.
so Darth
Does
Nihilus wore
Nihilus
the mask,
wear the
and
mask?
that was the Planet Eater. Darth Scion was he was like held together by pain, and he's all cracked and gnarly.
Like most of the emo kids in my high school, held together by pain.
So, but in any case, going back to,
Shout out to them.
the Mace Windu, with the purple lightsaber, we actually got to see a lot of lightsaber evolution that really makes itself apparent in the new MMO that's still I say new, like it isn't a decade old, but still running strong in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Now, me and my friends play this game kind of on and off. There's a lot of downside to it, so please, everybody that's listening, I love the game. I think the storylines are great. However, the people in charge of it are miserable, and so it's very microtransaction-y.
But Ryan also loves all things, so
Yeah, I guess I'm the optimist here. That's a weird way to say it.
yeah, Ryan's the optimist. Unless you talk about metachlorians, and then it's
Oh God.
it's down the hate train.
Oh, okay. So Kit Crash had a good one. Mace Windu says, "Say Order 66 one more time, motherfucker. I dare you."
That's solid.
That would have been fine. Good Pulp Fiction reference in the middle of
Yeah.
the Star Wars movie would have been okay.
Yeah,
Again,
you
Bones is
imagine?
like where he gets his hands chopped off and just motherfucker just gets yeeted out the window.
Just with nubs.
Yeah,
Oh
it'd
yeah.
be hard to pick his nose.
I'm sure he gets new hands.
dude. Do you think he could?
No, I'm sure he doesn't live. Like, I'm pretty sure he just falls to his death.
Well, and so
No
that's
body,
actually
no
been
death.
that's been a lot of debate on whether or not Mace Windu's going to come back because no body, no death, right? And we watched Darth Maul get cut in half and come
Yeah, I
back.
was gonna say
He
Darth
gets
Maul.
like
isekai.
He gets isekai.
He's isekai as another Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a returner. There you go.
Spoiler. Gojo's supposed to be coming back. Anyways, so continue.
Allegedly. Don't you feel anyone?
Allegedly.
You don't know if he went north or south, bitch. Like,
So all of this to say that yes, I've tried the miniatures gaming for Star Wars. I find them quite enjoyable.
X-wing was fine. Armada was okay. Whatever the Trooper one was awful.
Imperial Assault.
Imperial
So
See,
Assault.
what's funny is you have very, very strong feelings about Imperial Assault.
It's
Me and
bad.
Ugly played it on Pi Day at Paradise.
I know.
and had a
Bless you, the
great
two of
time.
you.
I
I love both of you
But-
dearly. You guys are very close friends to me. I hated that game.
So I went to HalCon last year, and I'm probably going again this year. And they have a whole like huge room that's just board games. And me and my kid actually played Star Wars, and it wasn't
There's
bad.
some really
Like,
good Star Wars board games.
Yeah. There's some
like,
great
I don't know
Star
if
Wars
we
actual
played the
board
one you're
games.
talking about per se, but it was like two big armies. We had these crazy clear movement sticks that we
I
had
think that's
to use.
Armada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Armada had range sticks and
Yeah.
it had the movement
Oh.
things that were like you could crooked it. Where
I
it's
think
like,
Yeah.
here's
mine
your
are
ship's movement.
gray. Maybe
Well,
not.
we
Not
didn't
that
have,
Clark
like,
played any Star Wars games, according to Eric.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I will hold my
TTRPGs.
opinion.
Oh, for fuck's
Yeah.
sake. Here we go.
Armada.
Y'all gonna
Anyways,
make Eric quit.
At least
he's
cry.
gonna catch a bunch of flack on TikTok from all of the
Oh,
sims
yeah.
that follow for Clark content.
There's
Hey,
like two
on that-
people who are just like,
on
be
that
nice.
note, Shout
Hello.
out to all the simps for Clark. Glad to have you here.
Still
Welcome.
2 people.
It's 2 more than Ryan and I have.
Yeah,
so-
I don't have any simps. I want a simp.
I have plenty, so it's okay.
Yeah,
You
well,
lying.
you got that face. But yeah, no,
It's my
and
witty
so when it comes
charm.
to the Star Wars board games, actually, there are a lot of really good Star Wars board games. There's also a lot of really good Star Wars card games. There's one that
Oh.
I own that I play with my daughters a lot. That's it's kind of a self-contained deck building game, and you start off with this little deck of like very basic stuff, and as you fight and go through, you can buy more and more stuff to add to your deck, and it gets larger and larger, and
It's like the.
it's a lot
Is
of
it like
fun.
the Marvel deck builder game that you
It's
tried to get me
similar.
into?
It's similar to Legendary, but the
Legendary.
basic mechanics are different.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like deck building games, and I think that one was one of the better examples. Legendary is still my top, but
Did they ever make like I feel like there would be a Magic version of Star Wars. Like there would
Yes,
be
there
that
was.
kind of
I
game.
played it.
Okay.
It was
And?
very interesting.
yeah, the
It
Star Wars
it was
In a
good.
good way?
Light
TCG,
side versus dark side is what you
Okay.
had to play.
yeah,
It was good.
Yeah, but those were only like there was no deck construction in that. If I
Yeah, there
remember
was.
correctly, it was all pre-built.
No,
I thought
it was deck building.
yeah, there was definitely a
I never played
TCG.
it.
It was good, dude. Like it was solid. You got
What's
planets,
funny-
I mean, it takes so
space,
much to pull
land.
me away from Magic the Gathering just because it's such a complete like
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
it was
TCG.
the
this
problem
one's
with Star
called
Wars.
Star Wars: The Gathering. Is what I've found online.
So
remember
what you're
being
referring
called
to
that,
is
but-
Star Wars Unlimited. It's an actual full bore Star Wars
They had
kind
a bunch
of
of
trading
different
card game.
sets
Oh
and
my god,
everything
it's just
too. Like
Pokemon.
they had all kinds of different sets to it. Like it was just like Magic, and it ran
Don't
for
say
a
the P
while.
word too loud, Clark. Eric
I
will
know.
hear
I
you.
whispered it. I whispered.
Yeah.
it.
Erica,
Pikachu?
looking
God
on.
damn it.
Oh man, we made it an hour and 3 minutes.
But on a for real
Um,
note, there is a Magic the Gathering style Star Wars game that was out.
Yeah, and it
Several
looks like Star Wars
editions.
Unlimited is still going strong. TCGplayer.com has current
Could've
stuff on
fooled
it.
me.
So
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't seen the new stuff for that. Then I don't know. Like maybe they're still using the old cards and stuff. But it was good though.
Apparently
Like I think you had space that you could control, like the planet, and then if you had the planet, you could have the scene card, which was like if you had Hoth, the planet, you could have certain Hoth locations, and you had to control like multiple parts of it. It was pretty good.
yeah, it looks pretty solid. There were a few others that I know came and went kind of throughout the years. Some of them were a little bit more niche than others, but
Here, Crash says Clark Sims say, "Huh? Didn't know I liked Star Wars." Yes, clipping this.
Clips.
Oh
Priceless.
Lord.
Oh.
Thanks, new friend.
but yeah, no. So and there's a whole bunch of that. To get back to what I was saying about the lightsabers, though, the Old Republic is a great MMO. It's a good little team building deal. It's got base building. It's similar to the city building that Eric talked about in Galaxies, but it's more of you get a personal space. But with the purple lightsabers in Old Republic, you can make lightsabers that are all over the place, every color
Yeah,
under
you
the
get some
rainbow.
wild color combinations. You can get
Yeah.
multicolors where they have like an aura one color and then the base blade's another, and
Yeah, it is a lot of
you
fun.
can get ones that like you can get whatever the emitter deal is. So like some of them are like more wavy and some of them are more solid.
Yeah, some of them are unstable and spark and go kind of like
yeah,
Kylo
the
Ren's.
unstable ones are crazy.
Like
I
we
really
played-
liked Kylo Ren's lightsaber. I know everybody shit all over the little crossguard thing.
I
but
thought it was
I thought
cool.
it was cool. Yeah, I'm like you. I thought it was dope.
But I mean, and I do catch flack for that a lot because there are a lot of games that are unpopular that I still find a lot of fun. It takes a lot for it to be a bad game for me. Now, when it comes to games that I didn't enjoy, that's actually a really hard question. Now I'm questioning myself after Clark brought it up, where it's like I'm sure there's games I don't enjoy, right? There are RPGs I don't enjoy. I don't like Mutants and Masterminds, as an example.
I'm
I
so
do
proud
not
of
enjoy
you.
that game. I don't like Burning Empires. I don't enjoy that game. But when it comes
I'm
to like,
gonna side with Ryan on that one. Mutants and Masterminds was not very fun.
it was not good. When it
Never
comes to
played
board
it.
games, though, I like most of them.
Dudes of Legend still greatest TTRPG of all time.
Dudes of Legend was awesome. That was an expansion for New World of Darkness back in the day.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
it's like all like they take every trope and then dial it to 11 and make it as
Yep.
comic as possible, and it's super. it's one of those ones where it's like if you're doing a throwaway, it's so fun because then you just make an entire character that's a pun. Like you just
Yeah.
really lean into one gimmick and then just go all the way with it.
Yay!
All right, so we're coming up on the end of the episode here. I do want to do
That was random.
kind of a thought experiment. So, if we were
No,
all
don't
sitting
make Eric
down
think.
to play a Star Wars RPG, everything's on the table. What are you going to build? Travis, why don't we open up with you? What do you make?
I mean, I'm gonna go gunslinger again. Actually, you know what? No. One that I never got to play in all of our tabletop RPGs, but I always wanted to, was the trooper with the assault cannon. Like
Oh, the heavy
Gatling
gunner?
gun. Yeah, I
All
never
right.
got to use the big Gatling gun that had the front projecting shield.
Excellent. What about species? Got a favorite
Oh,
species?
clone. Clone trooper.
Oh,
Clone trooper is my
fantastic.
favorite species. They get all like.
I'm absolutely with you. I love clone
Yeah,
trooper stories.
Yeah, they're super fun to play.
I'm actually going to give a shout out to Ugly. I don't know if he's listening, but you brought me my love of the clones, man. I appreciate
Best trooper ever for the Old Republic. His shit was so funny.
it. Oh, yeah.
That was probably the hardest I've ever laughed playing an MMORPG was with Ugly and his trooper.
All right, Eric. We're playing
Ewok
Star Wars
smuggler.
RPG. An Ewok smuggler.
An Ewok
Epic.
being a fucking
All
bleaches
fair.
his
All right.
fur.
Epic. I'm about it. All right, Ewok smuggler. Clark.
She's like Jawa.
Jawa. Jawa Jedi.
That sounds like I don't actually know like the classes and
Freaking
races
wild.
that are in.
That's all right. Give me just a general thing. Make whatever you want.
Let's go with. Can I do like an aggressor infiltrator type?
Sure.
Sweet. I'm gonna do that, and I'm going Zach.
I think that's a Sith class,
Zabrak?
actually, was
Zabrak.
Infiltrator.
It is of course going to be a Sith class.
A
Zabrak.
Zabrak infiltrator. That's fantastic. All
I
right.
think I will enjoy that.
Zabrak are
Maybe.
dope. I love their
Yeah.
aesthetic.
Either that or a duelist, maybe.
Deuce
Ryan,
Salt?
Ryan, can I guess yours?
Oh, interesting. Hit me.
It's going to be a wizard.
Twilly.
Sand person Beastmaster.
Sandperson Beastmaster. It's exactly
Oh.
right.
Knew it.
Easy peasy. I'm gonna do some hood rat Tuscan stuff. Like,
I just
Oh,
imagine
exactly
you
right.
and Dune riding the sandworm.
Fighting the Bene Gesserit.
yeah. So, anybody that's listening, actually, that little thought experiment, I'm gonna throw it to you guys. Let us know in the comments if we were all getting ready to sit down and play a gigantic Star Wars RPG. What are you making?
The Emperor.
Yeah.
Can I be Palpatine?
You can only be a Palpatine. That means
Oh,
you have to be
boo.
related to Rey.
Yeah,
I be-
gross.
Yeah. I want to be the Palpatine from Robot Chicken. Just so I can answer the phone with it's a go for Papa Palpatine.
Oh, Bones answered quickly. A Dathomir Night Sister. Solid play. I'm about it.
Good.
A little bit of necromancy.
Everybody likes the necromancy.
All right, guys. But that's kind of been our
It
take
makes it more
on
interesting.
the Star
Keep your
Wars
friends with you when they
games.
go.
That's our take on the Star Wars games, guys. Card, board games, PC, and console, some of our favorites, and some of our favorite tangents. Let us know what some of your favorite Star Wars gaming is. Did we miss something? Is there something that you think is absolutely blasphemous that we missed? Hit us up. Let us know. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next episode.
And one thing I want to start adding to this real quick before we leave for the day is to give shout outs to different things in the sense of like maybe a local business near you or things like that. And the only reason I want to do that is because there's a company here that's doing something rather cool. Solvaria, they started really small, like VR place here. And they've grown. And they actually run a like gaming like youth club now. Where
Oh,
like
fantastic.
you can sign up and like you get 2 hours of gaming with them, and they're letting kids like meet, hang out, get to know like, and they're really trying to actually get the kids to like interact with each other and do different things. Ryan, you'll love to hear that they have a whole board game setup thing, for the kids to like get
Fantastic.
them to kind of use their kind of think in a different way than just playing video games all the times and stuff like that. And they're trying to get esports going in my area, which is a very small 1994 style area. So, if anybody wants to shout out things like that, write us, let us know. All of our social medias, and obviously, if anybody else has something they want to shout out at the end, I think it's just a nice way to kind of give some credit to some people that are around, and do something different. So thanks, Silvaria, for a youth gaming club.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
And with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. We are crossing the Nerdverse. Make sure you give us a like, follow, and subscribe, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for joining us.
See you guys.
Use.
Bye.